In the early 1930s, Edward VIII was the King of Britain. He became king in 1936 after the death of his father, King George V. Edward was popular among the public, known for his charm, modern outlook, and love for a luxurious lifestyle. However, his reign was short-lived. He was deeply in love with Wallis Simpson, an American woman who was twice divorced. At the time, Britain's royal family and the Church of England were very strict about marriage, especially involving someone with a divorce in their past. Wallis, despite being wealthy and well-known in society, was not considered suitable to marry the king. The 1930s was a time of great social change in Britain. The country was recovering from the First World War, and there were economic challenges, including the Great Depression. The monarchy faced pressure to maintain its traditional values. The public, the British government, and the church all had strong opinions on who Edward should marry. But Edward was determined to marry Wallis, no matter the consequences. This love story would lead to one of the most shocking decisions in British history, the abdication of the king. Edward VIII first met Wallis Simpson in 1931, when she was already a well-known American socialite. Wallis was married to her second husband, Ernest Simpson, but their relationship was on the rocks. Edward was drawn to Wallis's charm, independence, and beauty. She was unlike anyone he had met before, and their connection was instant. They started spending more time together at private parties and social gatherings, where their bond deepened. Despite Wallis being a twice-divorced woman, Edward's affection for her only grew stronger. At that time, divorce was highly frowned upon, especially for someone in the royal family. But Edward saw something special in Wallis, and their relationship blossomed. They began to secretly see each other more often, and Wallis soon became a regular part of Edward's social circle. As their relationship developed, it became clear that Edward was falling deeply in love with Wallis. She, in turn, was captivated by Edward's kindness and attention. Even though Wallis's past made their relationship controversial, neither Edward nor Wallis could deny their growing feelings for one another. Their love story would soon challenge the very rules of the British monarchy. As Edward's relationship with Wallis Simpson grew stronger, the royal family became increasingly concerned. They disapproved of Wallis because of her 2 divorces, which was considered scandalous at the time. The royal family, especially Edward's father and his brother, felt that Wallis was not suitable to be the future Queen of Britain. For them, marriage was not just about love, it was about maintaining the royal family's reputation and upholding tradition. The British government and the Church of England also strongly opposed the relationship. The Church, in particular, held strict views on divorce, and many felt that Wallis's past would cause a scandal. The government feared that her marriage to Edward would damage the monarchy's image and upset the public. Edward found himself torn between his duty as king and his love for Wallis. As king, he was expected to follow the advice of the royal family and government, and marry someone seen as appropriate. But his love for Wallis was so strong that he struggled to choose between his royal responsibilities and his personal desires. This created a deep internal conflict, as Edward realized that staying true to his heart might cost him the throne. Edward faced a huge internal struggle. As the King of Britain, he had a responsibility to his country and his family. He was expected to marry someone of royal blood, someone who would be accepted by the British public and the Church. But his love for Wallis Simpson was deep and real. She was a woman he truly cared about, and he couldn't imagine his life without her. The pressure from the royal family, the government, and the Church to end his relationship with Wallis grew stronger every day. They all told him that marrying Wallis would be a mistake, that it would harm the monarchy. Edward knew that marrying her would cause a scandal, but he also knew he couldn't give her up. He realized that if he chose duty over love, he would never be happy. In the end, Edward made the bold decision to marry Wallis Simpson, defying the expectations of the royal family and the public. He chose love over duty, even though it meant giving up the throne. His choice shocked Britain and the world, as no British king had ever voluntarily stepped down before. Edward was willing to lose everything, his crown, his title, and his royal life, just to be with the woman he loved. In December 1936, Edward made his historic decision to abdicate the throne for Wallis Simpson. He knew that by marrying Wallis, he would be breaking royal traditions, and the monarchy could not accept a twice-divorced woman as queen. Edward's love for Wallis was stronger than his desire to be king, so he chose to step down from the throne. This decision shocked the world and was unprecedented in British history. The public reaction to Edward's abdication was mixed. Some people admired his courage to follow his heart, while others were angry and disappointed. Many believed that the king had let the country down, and some felt that his action was a sign of weakness. The royal family and the government were also upset by his choice, as it caused a huge crisis for the monarchy. Edward's younger brother, George VI, became king in his place, but the royal family was never the same. In his emotional abdication speech, Edward explained his decision: "I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do without the help and support of the woman I love." Edward's abdication left a lasting legacy, showing that love could change the course of history. After Edward abdicated the throne, he and Wallis Simpson moved to France, where they lived in exile. Edward was given the title Duke of Windsor, and Wallis became the Duchess of Windsor. Although they were no longer part of the British royal family, they were still under constant scrutiny. People were fascinated by their life, but many still looked down on Wallis because of her past divorces. The royal family never fully accepted her, and their relationship remained tense. Edward and Wallis faced many challenges in exile. They lived in luxury, but Edward often felt isolated and cut off from Britain. He didn't have the power or influence he once did as king, and he struggled to find a new purpose. Wallis, too, had a complicated relationship with the British royal family. While she loved Edward, she was never fully welcomed by his relatives. She was seen as the woman who had caused Edward to give up the throne, which made her a controversial figure. Despite these challenges, Edward and Wallis stayed together and continued to live in the public eye. Wallis supported Edward, but their life outside Britain was always filled with the shadow of the past, and their place in history was forever marked by the decision to choose love over royalty. Edward's decision to abdicate the throne had a huge impact on the British monarchy. His choice to give up the crown for Wallis Simpson shook the foundations of the royal family. It set a precedent that no British king had ever set before, one of willingly stepping down. This left the monarchy in a crisis and forced his younger brother, George VI, to take the throne unexpectedly. George VI, who had not been prepared for kingship, faced many challenges, including leading Britain through World War II. His reign was marked by strength, and he became beloved by the people, but Edward's abdication had made it all possible. The consequences of Edward's abdication lasted for years. The royal family's image was damaged for a time, as many people viewed Edward's decision as selfish. However, as history progressed, Edward's love story with Wallis Simpson became one of the most famous royal scandals. It became a symbol of a man choosing love over duty, and their story was remembered for its dramatic and bold nature. Edward's abdication and his love story with Wallis Simpson left a lasting legacy. It changed the course of British history, showing that even the monarchy could be influenced by personal emotions, and it showed the world the power of love. Edward VIII's decision to abdicate the throne for Wallis Simpson is one of the most significant moments in British history. It shows how love can be so powerful that it can change the course of history. Edward chose to follow his heart, even though it meant giving up everything he knew, his crown, his position, and his royal duties. His choice was a bold statement about the power of personal desire over public responsibility. This story raises a thought-provoking question about the balance between personal happiness and public duty. Edward's decision highlights the conflict many people face in life, whether to choose what they believe is best for themselves or what others expect of them. Edward believed that being true to his feelings was more important than living a life based on duty and expectations. In the end, his decision shows the complexity of life and the consequences of following one's heart, even when it challenges the norms. It's a reminder that sometimes, personal desires can clash with public responsibilities, and the choice to follow one's heart is never easy. Edward VIII's abdication left a lasting mark on history, reminding us that love can have a deep and lasting impact, even in the most unexpected ways.